Alright guys, so it is Saturday morning and I am about to brew up my first ever Saison. As you can see outside, it's a beautiful day, sun is shining, I'm inside and gonna try and enjoy it as best as I can. But yeah, before we get started, let's go ahead and take a look at the recipe and we'll come back. Alright, so here we go for the recipe today. It's about 68% Pilsner malt, 15% Munich dark malt for color and a bit of sweetness, and the wheat malt also 15%, 2% acidulated malt in order to help out with the pH in the mash. And yeah, gonna be adding in some Apollo and Jarrylo for this guy, and using the French Saison WYeast 3711 on this one. I'm targeting 1052 for the starting gravity on this guy. Really want to come out with a nice, easy, about a 6%er, and yeah, nothing too overwhelming. Hi, SJ. So there you go. It's going to be a nice and simple brew day. The only thing special about this really is the use of Apollo and Jarrylo. Trying to get sort of more fruity taste out of the beer, other than just what the esters are going to provide from the yeast. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead, mash in, and get started. Alright, so now that we've got the grains in the mash tun, what I'm going to do right now is run some water in through the coil into the mash tun. So what I want today is 4.2 gallons for strike water. That equals out to 15.89 liters. So I'm going to go ahead, pump this through. I've already got the coil all flushed out and hot water starting to run to this end of the tubing. So as soon as I hit run on this device, it's going to go ahead and start pushing out hot water from the HLT, which is actually going through the coil and going to start to fill up the mash tun. So you can see I've got the HLT now. The present temperature is 73. It was at 75. I'm going to hit run. Then I'm going to open up the valve. I don't want it to go too fast, because I want the strike temperature to be somewhere in the neighborhood of you know, where we actually want to end up. So right now it's coming in at 43, going through the HLT. It's getting the heat transfer through the coil. It's coming up. It's actually 6 degrees coming in. Out of here it's 6 degrees. It's coming out at the top right now at 39. So what I'm going to do is back off. I'm going to bring this down to about 5 liters a minute. It's kind of hard, it's right around between 4 and 5. There we go. You see the HLT temperature is dropping. Where we actually want to end up today is 64 degrees for an hour. So now coming into the bottom of the mash tun at 49, which is okay. So this is 6 degrees going in. This is about 48, 50 degrees coming out. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue doing this, and I'll show you where we're at when it's finished. Okay, so 15.89 liters has been delivered. Last of it was going into the mash tun at 45 degrees. The HLT is at 64, which is actually right where we want to keep it for today. And the mash tun has water over the grain bed. So I'm going to go ahead and start to stir this up a little bit, and we'll come back. There we go. Stir up the mash. No dough balls. There's quite a bit of wheat malt in here today. I'm not worried about stuck sparges though. I've never had a stuck sparge with these Blickman false bottoms. Pretty fantastic. So since the HLT ended up at 64, I'm going to go ahead and just finish stirring this up for another few seconds, and then I'm going to go ahead and start the recirculation immediately. Okay, so the standard configuration is now set up. So we've got the water recirculating for the HLT, and that's currently temperature is at 65. I've got it set for 64, so it should be coming down pretty quickly. As you can see, the mash tun is 50 degrees, which ain't bad. So it kind of gives it a protein rest. Sorry. So now I've got it coming out of the bottom of the mash tun, recirculating through the coil, and coming back up to the top and just recycling. And we'll keep this up for today. It's going to be a 90-minute mash. With that Munich and the wheat malt, I'm going to want to make sure that we get good conversion, give it enough time, and it's also going to be a 90-minute boil as well. But so there it is, recycling over the top of the grain bed. I'm going to go ahead and let that raise up to 60 degrees, 64 on its own. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull that mashed in. Whoops. Gotta reset that. It's gonna be 90. So the alarm's gonna go off for 3 minutes. That's good. Yeah, 90 minutes. This will heat up to the temperature of the HLT in no time. It'll be there in probably 10 minutes. So I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, let's go ahead and put the alarm on so I get notification when the mash is complete. And that's it. Because of the constant recirculation, I don't have to go in and disturb the grain bed. Alright, so now I'm all mashed in, doughed in, set the clock for 90 minutes. You know, it's only been 3 minutes. I'm already up 59 degrees, so it's looking really good. It's going to hit 64 and stay there for, it's going to be there for probably a good 85 minutes. And yeah, just go ahead and let that mash convert all those starches to sugars, and then we'll take a look at it in about 90 minutes. I'm not really worried about coming in and stirring up the grain bed because I don't need to. It's constantly recirculating. There's about an inch of water over the grain bed the whole time, so I'm getting really good saturation. There's no need to disturb it at this point, and it's good to go. Okay, so I just finished calibrating my pH meter. Took a sample of the wort from the mash tun, and my pH is currently reading 5.38 at 36.8 degrees Celsius. So I'm pretty happy with that. The acidulated malt really helped to bring it down. My water pH for the source water coming in after the carbon filter was actually very surprising. It's right at 7.07 pH, which is pretty much, you know, right on with a teardrop. So current temperature of the mash is at 63, and now I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of water calculations in determining what my chloride to sulfate ratio should be, and make those additions as necessary for this Saison. Okay, so here in my computer I've taken a picture of the water book. Chapter 7 gives you some suggested water profiles for different types of beers, both lagers and ales. Today I am targeting a medium ale. It's going to be for the, you can see here it's for Saison, So calcium should be between 50 and 150, alkalinity between 40 and 120, sulfate between 100 and 400, chloride should be between 0 and 100. The residual alkalinity should be between minus 30 and plus 30. Should I acidify is maybe, and then the different styles that sort of thing is applicable. I really recommend checking out this book specifically for this section to help you out. So here I've got Palmer's mash for figuring out residual alkalinity. You know, I've typed in a few things up here in the top based on my target profile, or the target water profile, based on the parameters out of the book. Now I've got my source profile down here. And then scrolling down a little bit further, you know, you got some optional things to do for water dilutions. You get to add in your salts down here, and then you get to see your salt contributions, but ultimately down here at the bottom you get to see the results. And so for me, my calcium result for my addition should be around 111. Alkalinity should be right around 63. Not to be confused with residual alkalinity. Residual alkalinity is over here, going to be minus 23. Sodium 60, chloride 126, sulfate 123. And then over here is kind of where I have my my chem lab going up. pH. I'm trying to figure out the pH right now for my my sparge water. So, like I told you before, it was 7.03 pH, and what I'll try and do is get that as close down to 5.5, so that when I sparge, I don't mess with the pH inside the mash tun. We want to keep that relatively the same, so we don't want to influence that too much. So 5.6, I'm pretty good with that. That's a pretty good, pretty close, pretty good buffer. For that, I use 75% phosphoric acid to bring the pH of the sparge water down. For me personally, I got 13 gallons in the HLT right now, and to bring that down from 7 to 5.62 there, it took about 1 milliliter of 75% phosphoric acid. Alright, so we're about 65 minutes into the mash. I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Everything's clearing up nicely. Got the nice inch over the grain bed. Looking really clear. Alright, so here's a pre-sparge gravity reading. Looks like it's about 1059, just under 1060. And this is pretty good. We want to end up in the boil kettle with a 1040 pre-boil wort. So this is looking pretty good. Alright, so currently at the 78 or 79 mark. At 75 minutes, I took out a sample of wort. So let's see how it's evolved over the last 10 minutes. Alright, so we're up a little bit more. You can see now we're up around 1063. Yeah, and that's just in the last 10 minutes, so that's pretty good. I'll let this go, and I'll take another reading at the 85-minute mark and see where we're at. Alright, so at the 85-minute mark, it's only gone up about another point, and that's okay. We're about 89 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and start to sparge and put it into the boil kettle. Go. That's what it looks like filling up into the boil kettle. Nice light color at this point. So let's go ahead and hook up the sparge water. Alright, so the sparge water is hooked up and the flow is about the same as it is in the boil kettle. Looks like the boil kettle is a little bit more aggressive, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that down a little bit. It should take about 30 minutes to 45 minutes to bring this up to our pre-boil volume, which today is... Okay, so we want to collect about 8.56 gallons. So right about there. Got the water still coming in. The mash tun, it's already gone below the point, so it's probably just about done. So I'm going to go ahead and take a gravity sample, but that's pretty much all I want to collect. That's where I want to be. So I'm going to go ahead and call that good. Shut this off. Shut the pump off. And then just let the boil kettle heat up. I'm going to go ahead and stir it up a little bit and take a gravity sample and bring it up to a boil. Okay, so the pre-boil gravity is a little bit more than I expected. I was expecting 1040. It looks like I got about 1042. Which basically means that extra few minutes on the mash sort of helped out boost the efficiency a little bit. So that's alright. Okay, so taking those readings over here in Beersmith, I had a measure pre-boil volume. I had expected to get 8.56. I actually got about 8.6, a little bit more actually. The estimated pre-boil gravity was 1040. I got about 1042. So that leaves me with a mash efficiency of around 92, which is interesting. It estimated about 86, and that probably would have been accurate had I only gone for like 60 to 75 minutes. Probably 75 minutes. Okay, so using those figures, I had a gravity of 1.042. That comes out to be, a gravity unit of 42. So take that, multiply it by my volume, which was 8.6. So 42 times 8.6. That will give us somewhere in the neighborhood of about 361, which will be my total gravity units for this brew. So let's say now I want to figure out where I want to be when it comes down to 1052, which is what I want my original gravity to be. So divide that by 52, by 52, and that will give me the volume which I want to be at in my boil kettle when I reach that gravity. So estimated to be at roughly 6.9 gallons in the boil kettle when I get to 1052. So let's go ahead and see if we stay on target with that. There we go, approaching hot break. Well, got a little ways to go before I get to hot break, I guess. And getting ready to clean out the mash tun. So, alright, there we go. Pretty aggressive boil going there. So I'm going to go ahead and crank that down to my usual 75% on the PID. Then I get a predictable boil off rate of about 4 liters an hour. And it's about 1 gallon an hour. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit the timer and call that good. I got a 90-minute boil. First hop edition comes at 60 minutes. Alright, let's go ahead and start cleaning out the mash tun. Oh boy. Alright, we're at 60 minutes on the boil. About to do a hop drop. It's only about 7 grams of Apollo going in, and that's it. That's all there is until the whirlpool tablet in 15 minutes. There we go. Over here talking to main brewer guy, Gary. He's brewing up today with a buddy of his. There they are. There's Gary. Hey Gary, why don't you give a shout out to everybody? Hi to YouTube.
Hey, brew tubers.
There you go. Alright, just past the 75-minute mark. And go ahead and throw in a whirlpool tablet. Just let that sort of disintegrate. Alright, so we're we're 80 minutes into the boil, 10 minutes left before flame out. Went ahead and hooked up all the tubing for the whirlpool. Got it coming out of the bottom of the boil kettle. Gonna go through the pump, through the counterflow chiller, out the bottom of the counterflow chiller, and back up into the whirlpool port on the inside of the boil kettle. Alright, so I'm about 90 minutes at the end of the 90-minute boil. Everything's going good. Everything's hooked up, ready to go. My post-boil volume, I'm about 6.7, so I'm a little bit under where I expected to be. I expected to be done about 6.9, so I'm going to go ahead and call that good. I'm going to come over here, turn off the element. 90 minutes is up. The boil's stopping. I'm not going to worry about bringing the temperature down. Just going to put the whirlpool hops in at this temperature. Just give it a little bit of a stir. I'm going to go ahead and hook up, well, just get everything running here. We'll be back. Alright, so there we go. I always like to flush out the system. You know, if there was any residual star sand in there, I'll always take out about at least a quarter of a quart, maybe even half a quart, and then let it go ahead, continue through the system, sanitize, and we'll sterilize. Now it's the whirlpool's going, and I'm going to let this go for about 10 minutes before I turn on the chill water. So the temperature coming out of the end of the counterflow chiller right now is about 18 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to go ahead and shut off this valve up here, and instead of feeding it back into the kettle, I'm going to go into the fermenter. Hose on here and everything else has already been sprayed with star sand, so I'm not worried about it getting infecting anything. Temperature coming out bottom is about 17 degrees now. It's going pretty good. Just gonna wait for this to fill up. Still filling up good and at a good pace. Coming in here, you can see the pop debris sort of starting to pop up from the middle in the cone. Being pulled in to the filter. So this is where I'm going to come down here and adjust this, back it off a bit, let it come out a little bit slower, and that way it's not pulling in all that stuff through the hop blocker. Now, in order to counter the temperature, because the temperature when I slow it down, it's going to get even colder. So you can see now it's getting down around 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to go ahead and slow the water down at the faucet, and that will keep the temperatures in check. Alright, well that's all we get. A little bit of tube there at the bottom. You can see the proteins, and then you can see the hop beside it. Interesting picture. Everything's done, ready to go. Now it's time to cap this off, aerate it, pitch the yeast. Okay, so I was able to collect about 5.5 gallons actually, which is actually good because I'm going to be dry hopping with about 2 ounces of hops, 1 ounce of Apollo, 1 ounce of Jarrylo, and so now it's time to aerate. So I've got the stone all hooked up. I'm just going to go ahead and crank this on. Get the air started. Now I can see it in there. And I'll give this probably a good 30 to 45 seconds. It's not a very strong gravity. Alright, so there we go. We got a 1500 liter starter, and just going to go ahead and take this off. Get this all set. Dump it right in. So, using the magnet to catch the stir bar, of course. Let's get that lid back on there. Seal it up. Get an airlock on it and put it in the fermentation bathroom. Okay, so according to the refractometer, we are about 1053, 1054. That puts us a couple points over the target. So we were aiming for 1052. Yeah, you know, but I think I'll be okay with this. So we came out at 1054 at about 5.5 gallons. We wanted 1052, but of course we were aiming for 6 gallons in the end, so we did boil down a couple quarts more than expected, which would account for the 2 points that are there. So you know, that's okay. As long as we don't end up with like a 7%er, that should be fine. Just looking for a nice, easy drinking Saison.